guys. It's me, Maya Larson. I'm in my basement workspace and I am working on this month's Hilma Af Klint inspired art class. And it's such a joyful challenge to create your own set of symbols and to think about your life and art in a different context perhaps than you have before. We're going to go through our own personal lexicon of design ideas and symbols because of course Hilma Af Klint's art was abstract art, so it'll be a lot of fun to dive in and go about it in a really personal way so that you touch exactly what Hilma was after and exploring that inner connection between yourself and your soul, your heart, whatever you want to look at it, but that part of you that the light that exists inside, because Hilma's art, as you'll see, and experience is very full of love, very full of life, very full of energy and creativity. There's no absence of joy in her work, and that's an important thing to think about, especially in this modern era. And for a female to have embarked on that kind of a journey in the first place, the amount of time and energy she devoted to it and the sacrifices she made to make sure it was the quality she wanted it to be is, not small. Even in today's world, we still struggle, especially as women, with putting ourselves and our art ahead of maybe some of the things that society tells us should be first and foremost in our priorities. But what they don't understand with women is it's not one or the other. We are less inclined to compartmentalize our love and attention, especially if you've been a mother. You know how to work in a circle and multitask and put things on hold and realize the integral and integrated nature of everything. And I feel that that is something that Hilma Af Klint had really not stumbled upon, but brought out through herself, and her fearless pursuit of that is definitely an inspiration we can all take upon. So I'm going to flip the angle and show you a little bit of what I've been working on lately, because art is always in progress. It should always be in flow. If you're not doodling in between paintings, I give you permission. Start doodling today. Get a doodle book. Doodle while you're on the phone, doodle while you're talking to friends, doodle while you're watching the shows, and then take a look at the quality of energy that comes from those doodles. You might be surprised.
So here is a doodle I did. I had the opportunity recently to sit relatively still for about 6 hours, and in between I just, allowed my imagination to wander like I used to in high school. And this is the kind of thing that I used to so love to make. So the art that Hilma Af Klint made definitely would have been transformative in that way that is so hard to put into words back in her time. But for us, I feel like there's already a connection, and she just serves to help validate that. So here is an example of a way to create your own symbols. So the first row is going to be your symbol for light, happy, warm, and love. And then the second row represents the opposite of that, dark, sad, cold, and unhappy or ungrateful. And the third row would be a combination symbol using both those shapes. So you can make any shapes you want. You definitely don't have to use these, but I do think it's important for you to give it a shot and have some fun and try. And you can take all the time you want with creating your symbols. But the secret to making this abstract piece is we're going to take the symbols and blow them bigger onto the page so they become abstracted. And then that way we're not so focused on illustration. So here are some examples from way back in the day when I was about 17 years old. So when I say Hilma Af Klint's art seems natural to me, it's because I was already engaged in this style of intuitive art making as a teenager and young adult. I was very into theosophy as well, which I share with Hilma Af Klint, and a way to process that kind of higher learning is to draw it out or to create something that sort of encapsulates what you learned. And here, for example, I was learning about balance. I've got the words Know Thee Soten, which stood for Know Thyself, and I had created a set of 10 art cards and very simple images, very similar to my Ein Artist Oracle, but in this case, this was for spiritual study. So those things say a lot to me, but not necessarily in the same language to everybody else. But as art, it's not relevant. In art, It's what you see in the picture that matters. This is one of my favorites that I did, and it carries a spot in my head with all I do. But I enjoyed this black and white phase of my style, and it's very illustrative, but there's a lot there. Whereas Hilma's abstracts are beautifully simple while still packing a very huge punch, and that happens because of their size. If you ever got to go see the 10 biggest, the 10 largest, and I included some of those at the beginning around where I was talking in the screen, those were massive paintings that are way taller than a human being, and the color is so beautiful. And if you think of Kandinsky and the other modern abstract art that was emerging that was credited more back then, it was a very different energy. I'd never really appreciated it. I always found the colors to be too bright, too stark, too aggressive, whereas I found Hilma's art to make more sense right off the hop. So here's an example of symbols. Spirals represented evolution, roses were for masculinity, lilies represented femininity, the U shape for the spiritual world, W's represented the material world. These are Hilma herself symbols. Below that is an example of a similar one that I showed you there quickly on the time lapse. Light, happy, quiet, hot, young, love. Those are the symbols I used for this work. This one got too illustraty, so I kind of pulled back, but I will paint it in the watercolor as well for you guys. But here we've got the symbols for light and love, and then I love the mushroom as the sort of tree of life symbol. It's making new nutrients out of old outmoded states of mind. I've got quiet and loud here. I've got unhappy. I've got cold. All of that's in the mix in the soil beneath the mushroom fruit body. You can also, instead, if you want, use the symbols for the zodiac. If you feel that you can relate more to your sign as like Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, use that, but make it big on the page. Don't make it all about a tiny little glyph. We're going to create sort of an abstract using that symbol all across the page, and then you can find ways to incorporate it in your paint colors as well. Red, orange, and yellows are all warm colors, and that definitely indicates heating up, rising, warming. You know, it can also, we're going to keep this up positively. We're not going to get into any negative stuff for shadow processing in this particular class. So warm is still a beneficial, and then you have your cool colors, your greens, your blues, your purples. If you want to mix them all and do sort of a rainbow, or if you want to neutralize them to have a little bit more of a muted color, you know, adding some green to that red, some yellow to that violet, some blue to that orange. That way you're not, you know, too primary color. Those are things to consider as well. But ultimately, I just want you to have fun. So for my shape today, I chose the fusion of a few things. The flower and its symbology of root, stem, leaf, and plant and fruit always works well with me when I think of spirit. I think of a garden, and then I find that the information flows a lot quicker for me. It's just my natural preferred metaphor, I suppose. So that's why I chose that. And then I put in the middle, the center of the Cancer. So that's the crab of the zodiac, and I love that it has sort of two faces facing each other. It still reminds me of mother and child. Recently I discovered that in Vedic astrology or Sanskrit astrology, I'm actually not a fire sign, I'm a water sign. So it's been an interesting year to kind of contemplate just the me that was when I thought I was a fire sign, and where that may have led to new growth, and where I may have, you know, sort of created suffering for no reason. There's lots to contemplate. And as a person creating the art, you will have all of that information, but just know if somebody else is viewing it, that's not what they're taking from it. All of those symbols are personal to you. In the leaf here that's supporting the flower, I've used the U and the W shape of Hilma because I feel like plants and mushrooms and all of that sort of exist between both of those worlds. So it's a wonderful shape to play on. And, you know, if I had to give this a title, because Hilma had the adult and the youth and the old age, I'd say this is menopause. Here I've got the symbols for fire, for water, for air, and earth, because, of course, as my body is now shifting into a new state, it's growing and changing and transforming, and it's a wonderful thing to begin to accept, to sort of relish the grandmother stage in me that'll be coming, you know, in a few years. 50's not that old. But but the hot and cold flashes are represented in the elements and in the hot and cold on the leaf. That looking at, the symbol I chose for the middle, I can see maybe it's more about me looking at my inner child, looking at the elder, right? We're coming to a full cycle here. On the sort of curly Q of the stem, I have my symbol for young and old that's connected by sort of the hourglass symbol when I merge them. So a fun take on youth and old. And then the spiral of evolution, I definitely resonate with that in Hilma's work. I think that was missing from a lot of the shapes. You saw it emerge maybe in Art Deco because they had a very curvy and linear style. But I feel Hilma's color choices and her femininity, and even if you don't choose to identify with gender stereotypes, there's still attributes within everybody, the spiritual attributes for flow and movement, and spiritual attributes for stopping and rest, right? So masculine and feminine, when it comes to spiritual, when you're not dealing with gender and ego, has more to do with polarity. So you need polarity to activate life. You need spark, and spark doesn't occur in a vacuum. It has to have tension, friction, and opposition, right? So those are difficult things sometimes to read about. So art is a wonderful way to integrate them and process them, and to maybe look at your life and try and find where elements of this exist. If you're feeling very hot and bothered, how can you bring cool calm to your life, right? So there's ways of self-care that can be, become self-evident through your own efforts and art. So if you don't choose to use these symbols, I relish that. I would love to see what you make of your own study of Hilma Af Klint. There is so much out there to find and experience about her. There's books, audiobooks now about Dem Femme and what they think could have been the world that they were existing in and how they were creating their beautiful channeled images. But just know that beauty and divine is everywhere, all the time. So as you work, if you embrace love, love will embrace you. And it is just a simple matter of acceptance. I enjoyed this slightly more psychedelic mushroom with all that blur that is the life of a menopausal person. But even if not, just know that it doesn't have to be perfect on the first go, friends. I would invite you to do this whenever you are drawn to creating something, when you feel things are overwhelming and you would like to create something abstract that has a coded message for you when you look at it, where you go, oh yeah, I remember going through it, that phase of my life and time, and memories that will surface for you when you gaze at the art you created. And then you can put it away, but you'll always walk away having realized that there's a bit more to you now that you've grown and changed and shifted, and how wonderful that is. So thanks again for joining me for October, friends. Have a wonderful beginning of fall, and I will see you for next month's class.